Morning, gentlemen and ladies. It's a unique proposition as well as something that will create a bit of flutter for someone like me to come and address a gathering comprising so many luminaries in various spheres of life who are accomplished enormously and who have achieved beyond people's imagination. Be that as it may, for somebody who's primed, trained to expect the unexpected as you walk out on a field of play and take things as they come along, this is something that is definitely not something that I've not experienced. And therefore, I think I'll try and give it my best shot and see how it pans out. After all, in life, you don't know until you do certain things. It's always about doing things and seeing how it pans out and where it ends. And that's the reason why I've always tried various things. And I must say that I've not done rather badly. Neil was speaking about my life in cricket and the things that I did in cricket. But what generally gets overshadowed in a cricket-crazy country is a cricketer doing other things outside of cricket. So by that I mean I spent about 18 odd years working in top-notch corporate entities across different functions and of course at different levels. So that is something that gave me the encouragement to write a book on leadership, which suggests that both sport and business can feed off each other and benefit enormously. When we talk about leadership, we always think that it's only for people who have been given a position to try and guide others. I, for one, feel that any one of us or anybody can go on to become a leader because it's all about management. If you talk about basic life, it's about managing and finding solutions. You take a homemaker to a traffic cop to a parking attendant. They all manage things, they all look to find solutions, they all try to prevent chaos, they all try to facilitate progress, they all facilitate smooth functioning. So I, for one, firmly believe that each one of us have all the attributes that can make us leaders. And that's what I've tried to encourage all through my coaching career. Now, on the sports field, you need somebody to captain. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be chaos. As it is, sport can be extremely chaotic if it's not executed well enough. So that's the reason you need that. And the important thing here is that it's always about trying to work as a team, as a leader, try and encourage people to work as a team and try and ensure that you don't really think that you're the be-all and end-all of everything. And as far as leadership is concerned, what does make somebody a good leader is something that I always get asked. And I say yes, leader is one who's got a lot of attributes. He's got to have the ability to be forward-thinking, he's got to have good communication skills, he's got to be good in decision-making, he's got to be good in planning. When I say he, keep mentally adding the /she as well, because I don't want to stick to one particular gender. So he or she obviously has to have all these attributes: decision-making, planning, and then motivating and building teams, and also challenging people to do things out of their comfort zone and excel. But I have whittled it down to basic five things. If you ask me what it is that you need to have as a leader, I've gone the route of saying that you need to have five C's to start off with, apart from all the attributes that I was speaking about. And the topmost of the five C's, according to me, is credibility. This credibility is something that you cannot do without. And it doesn't matter which part of the world you are in, which part of the ladder you are at in your career, you need to have credibility. And also which stage of your life you're at. On the business front, I experienced myself personally. Like, I'd gone to UK to try and meet a prospective buyer who wanted to be the distributor of the MRF brand of bats and sports goods. Now, here's this guy is by himself the owner of one of the leading brands of cricket equipment in the world. So, as we were discussing, my question to him was, what is your motivation to be the distributor of our brand when you own a very popular and perhaps globally the number one brand? So his answer was that he operated at different levels, and then quite obviously when you get into a business discussion, the numbers are discussed, the prices are discussed. So he was trying to test me in a way and also try and see what I was made of. So he said, we all know you just brand the bats. You have a dedicated manufacturer. You just brand the bats. So why don't you take a top brand and stick on a lesser brand and then give me at a lesser price? That way you will generate a lot of business from me. So when he said that, I just smiled and I said, if this is a test you're failing, if this is how you do business, I don't want to do business with you, I'm going back. And I got up, I was halfway through to the door. He shouted, Ram, just a minute, don't be too much of in a hurry. So I said, yes, what's it now? So he says, I was just curious. I said, I'm very well aware of you English. I know what your curiosity is all about. I know what your attitude is all about when it comes to certain people from certain parts of the world. You've got to be careful as well if you're a representative of a company in the words you use. So eventually he said, okay, let me try and see what can be worked out. And then he said, as you are walking out in a huff, don't lose sight of the fact that you come all the way, you're going back without any business. I said, doesn't bother me. If I get sacked, I get sacked, but the point is that I'm not going to be doing business the way you suggest, because I don't think the company I represent does that. And on the sporting field, this credibility is something you cannot do without. It's impossible, because there are so many checks and balances, and if you're not honest enough, if you don't like to do the right things, you're not going to really succeed in a field of play. An interesting thing happened on a tour of Sri Lanka in '93. Sachin Tendulkar was batting around 80s or something like that. So the instructions were sent that he had another 20 minutes of time, during which period he needed to complete his century to facilitate a declaration. So he tried, but he couldn't for some reason, and the declaration had to be delayed, and that is something that was discussed briefly, and he was ticked off. And a couple of days later, all of us were sat together after the game and we just reminiscing about what happened, what didn't happen. Somebody tried to bring that topic, sneak that topic in about him being delayed and getting ticked off. So Sachin, with that chubby cheeks of his and his broad smile, said, yes, if you don't do what is required of you in the interest of the team, you will get ticked off. And that statement was not only to stop the conversation from going afar. It was also a lesson for everybody that you need to be doing what you need to be doing. And the second C is, of course, the clarity that a leader must possess. And if you're talking about clarity, it's not only about the clarity of thought, it's also about the clarity in communication. And even more importantly is the clarity that you need to have during adversity. As I see this crowd here, I think I can safely say that you might have heard of Tiger Pataudi, the former Indian captain. And of course, he was rated as one of the captains. And I'm not going to be really boring about what he did on the field. He was asked a question about what was life like for him after he lost his eye in an accident. Now, he said it was very difficult. He said even to pick up a glass of water, it was a struggle because I would think it's placed here, I would take my hand and suddenly I'll miss the glass by at least about 4 inches. Now, he was a smoker. He said when I tried to light my cigarette, there were occasions when I almost burnt the tip of my nose. So then the interviewer said, must have been very difficult. How did you really cope with life then? He said, then I sat back. I said, yes, life is going to be like this. What do I do? Then he said, I realized I only lost my sight, not my vision. It may sound very simple. I lost my sight, not my vision. But that is clarity encapsulated in a matter of 8 words. And that's an extremely powerful sentence if one were to sit back and think about it. And that's one of the reasons why he was capable of bringing together people from different parts of the world, rally them together, and then make them perform as a team and prevail over the much fancied opposition in those days. Of course, India then was considered a minnow in cricket. We were just considered as also Rans. So that's one of the prerequisites, and that's one of the qualities that I think the leader needs to have. And the other thing is the connect that is so important, that leadership is always demanded of a person. A leader needs to have a connect with his team members, with the people he's handling, with the other stakeholders. If the connect is missing, then it's a bit of a problem. What does connect mean here? The ability to get into the minds of the people that you're working with or you're guiding. It's only then it becomes easier for you to get the best out of them, for you to communicate in the manner that they'll understand easily, and also in the fashion that you want them to do things to achieve the collective objective. There are a lot of times that leaders or captains losing sight of the fact that they can't be saying the same things to each and every person. And people who have resorted to that kind of connect or communication have always struggled to get the best out of their team members. It's so critical that you have the connect, but in order to have the connect, you need to have a little bit of control here as a leader. Control doesn't mean the power that you have over the others that you lead. Control is the ability that you have to temper down and to also hold your emotions in reins, especially when you are faced with a very, very big challenge as a team. Prime example of this would be Mahendra Singh Dhoni. You would never have seen him lose his control personally. Nothing comes through that face, nothing comes through him on the field, and you'd have hardly seen even a smirk from him when a bowler gets hit or when a catch gets dropped or anything that is not good for his side happens. And that's the kind of control that he developed, and that's the kind of temperament that is required of a leader as against somebody who has the ability to just not able to control his own emotions. Then becomes a very, very difficult proposition for the leader to get the best or to achieve the objectives set out for the team. And the final C is the conviction. Now, whenever it is that you people get into meetings and you discuss a lot of things and plans are laid out and it's finally decided that this is the route we are going to take as a team, the leader seeing that, rolling out that route map should have the conviction. Unless there is conviction, it cannot really happen. For your team members are also very unsure when they don't see the conviction in your plans or in the manner that you have conveyed the plans to them. Now, I have not spoken about the word courage here in these 5 C's that I have spoken that a leader needs. Courage on its own is a double-edged sword. Would you agree? Courage can make you foolhardy as well. Courage does not come on the basis of anything. It is just something that propels you because you have the power as a leader. Because your decision cannot be questioned. You are in a position where people don't question your decision. You just do it just to prove that your word is the ultimate or you need to have the final word. So I don't think courage is something that I would think of as an ally for a leader. Whereas these 5 C's that I mentioned about the credibility, the control, the connect, the clarity and conviction, if you have those 5 C's, that will give you enough courage. You don't need to manufacture courage. You don't need to project courage. You don't need to show off that you're courageous. In the sporting world, if you talk about these batters going and hitting in these IPL matches, you see the graphics, 150 kilometers per hour speed. These guys are hitting it into the next city. That's not courage. It's a culmination. Courage to play the fast bowlers, to hit the fast bowlers, those kind of big shots. Yes, that's come out of the years of training, the kind of practice that they have done, the kind of thought processes that go in, the opportunities that they pick to play those shots. So that culminates in the courage to hit a fast bowler into the next city. So, as far as I'm concerned, leaders need to be aware of the fact that there are a lot of other things that need to be focused upon rather than resorting to showing your courageous. And the other important thing for leaders is the ability to communicate. And what exactly is communication? It's a very tricky business. Of course, Neil would say it's the easiest thing on earth. I've been doing it for ages. I've been doing it for 5 births now. So he would say communication is no problem. No, but communication is tricky in the sense that you are conveying something in good faith, is being perceived as something else. The perception of the perceiver of the perceived. Quite confusing, isn't it? So it's a perception which is always tricky, and hence communication always needs to be very, very specific and very clear. And In order for the communication to register and have its impact, I think the leaders need to possess the ability to have convinced others, or it should have been a reputation that precedes the leaders that they are truthful. Otherwise, I don't think that's going to pass muster with the people you lead. The moment they think there's something that's dodgy in things that you say at times, I'm not saying as a habit, I'm not saying all leaders are habitual liars. I'm just saying at times when people get the perception that you're not saying facts as they are, then it becomes tricky. Because what happens is that you come across each other every day, you got to work together, you got to achieve objectives. And then it's going to be a very, very tough proposition. And that's why one of the things that is always evident in a sports team is that the captain always spells out what it is that is required, where it is that the team member has gone wrong. And quite obviously, in sport at least, you can't say anything otherwise because it's there for everybody to see. As against in an organization, something happens in a cabin, something is sent as a written communication through an email to somebody else. Not everybody gets to see, not everybody gets to know everything. So there is this scope for variables as well, some deliberate, some unwitting. So that's something that is always there in the corporate world, but in the sports field, I don't think there's any room for anybody to say something which is not transpired because everybody gets to see what happens. As in life, if you're talking about communication, timing is also of great essence. It depends on when you say things. Not only in the context of the situation that you find yourself in, not only in the context of the developments that have taken place in the plans that you've been implementing. It is also a case of saying things which would be received well by the person that you are conveying it to, because the others have a lot of things going in their lives. We don't know what exactly it is that they go through. And they could have been on the way to the office, they could have hit somebody, they would be thinking of that, whether it will become a bigger crime, whether they'll go inside for about 3-4 years, but yet they would not want to reveal it to everybody. There are a lot of things that can happen in the lives of others, in our lives as well. We might be having something going on in our lives. So it's also a case of when we say things, on top of how we say things. And as far as communication is concerned, just let me ask all you people here, what do you think is very critical in communication? Quickly. Message. Then? Body language, good. I was coming to that later. Yes, whether it's been received. Now let me bring in a very interesting thing here. You might laugh to start off with, but then when I explain, you would probably understand what I was trying to convey. What about the word tango? You heard the phrase, it takes two to tango, right? Equal participation with both the parties vying to have more listening ratio is very important in communication. Sounds a bit of a double talk, isn't it? How can you participate equally and then have more listening ratio? In the sense that the subordinate that you're talking to must have the freedom to express his or her views, is what I mean by equal participation. And listening ratio from the leader. It's only then you get a lot more information. If the person that you're talking to gets the impression that you're very impatient, you need to be told things quickly, or you give the impression that you don't have the time to listen to subordinate, I think you can talk for hours and hours and hours and years. I don't think it's going to happen. So the tango, as far as I try and describe it as, I think, is very critical. And I learned my communication lessons, I think, way back when I was doing my 8th standard in a school game. It was very interesting. We were playing the quarterfinal in the inter-school tournament, and we were 40 for 4. And as a captain, I was there batting, and those days I was an all-rounder, left-arm spinner who could bat. And at school level, I could manage everything on top. So the last capable batter walks out. He's also an all-rounder. I just tell him in Tamil, I say, just take it easy, nice and easy. So he was a powerful hitter of the cricket ball. So we bat for some time. Then a short ball outside the off stump. He just taps it into the gully's hands and walks out. And we win the game. Not we win the game, we lost the game by about 5 runs. It's a close game. We lost, utterly disappointing. So I went up to this guy, asked him, what is that all about? You can hit the ball really hard. He says, because of you. Oh. I said, what did I do? He said, you should have left me alone. You only said nice and easy. Aaram se maro, aaram se maar ke out ho gaya. So I said, oh, good. I need to get specific in life when I communicate. So that's the advantage sports leaders, captains have. They don't go into any school. They don't get trained. They don't get primed. I'm not criticizing any of you, please. Don't think I'm criticizing you, no. What happens is we are thrown into that job and then we learn on the job. And we suffer making mistakes, which means that we suffer, we go through all the disappointments and then learn a lesson. And that's why we remember that till the end of our lives. And I think that's a better way to get trained, because that's also experience guiding you well, because experience is a tough teacher, punishes you first and then teaches the lesson. And then going back to what our friend said here is that the body language, the theatrics is important. The theatrics, as in many years ago, I read a book called How to Read a Person Like a Book. So in that it says it's called just a cluster. Your words and your body language should match. That's how people, they say, who are really experts in detecting what the person is conveying through body language say. If they don't match, then there is enough room for people to doubt what you're saying. Here I would like to also perhaps add on or give in my 2-bit to say that it's not only a case of your body language matching your words, it's also the follow-up acts matching your words. By that I mean, if you commit something, you execute it. And this is what I call theatrics here. So a lot of people will just commit and say, oh, it's done, don't worry. And that'll be getting done for years. It doesn't happen at all. So this is where I would like to say that it's a follow-up of your action after you made a verbal commitment. Another important thing in communications these days, everybody is thinking of the messages received from various parties on the WhatsApp, on the Facebook, on the Twitter. So you need to be thrift. There's no time for anybody to listen to lengthy communication these days. I think the days are gone where it was only restricted to youngsters. I've seen a lot of mature people as well, very, very impatient when it comes to things that need to be discussed. But that's again the leader's bid, to try and crunch the communication, make every word count. So that's something that the leaders need to be aware of these days when they communicate, being thrift as well as making the most impact. And I don't know how many people read the Sports World those days. There was a magazine called Sports World. If you remember, there used to be an editorial written by Tiger Pataudi. Of course, he had the advantage of getting educated in Oxford. And what is impressive about his editor's note was, he would write about 150, 200 words. And he would convey a lot, which would perhaps require 1,000 words from others. His ability to say a lot without saying much. I think that's something the leaders need to develop. And trust me, I've had the fortune to speak to Tiger Patodi, and his ability to convey things was absolutely brilliant in the sense that uh, you would think, oh, what's he on about? But then you'll realize he said a lot in about 6, 7 words. And that's the way it was. He was asked about his father, and the interviewer was saying, your father was a very good polo player. He said, no, he was an enthusiastic player. By no means he was talented. So he was always very, very clever in what he said, how he said it. And he also said it very diplomatically as well. It's not that he was offensive or he was downright critical in what he said. Yes, and of course the decision making was something Neil was discussing about being the hallmark of leadership when he made the introductory speech. And of course, everybody makes decisions. It's a question of how and what forms the basis of decision making. The important thing in decision making, in sport at least, is ignoring a lot of things. For example, a batter goes out to bat. He's got 11 people, yakking away and saying a lot of things on the way up. And then he's got 11 people trying to get him out. And if he's playing in a competitive tournament like an IPL or an international game, he's got about 50,000 creating the noise that they create. These days, you have the added distraction of these cheerleaders and these beats and these dancers going around. So you got a lot of things that you need to ignore. Will you agree if I say humans by nature are very negative? Basically, he's not agreeing. He says, no, what are you talking? Or you can easily influence humans with a negative prod. Kaun Banega Crorepati is a classic example. Mr. Amitabh Bachchan as the producer telling him, sir, और थोड़ा 2 minute हो सकता है इस contestant का time. So he said an answer. He says, sure, lock किया जाए. You see the doubts that creep into the contestants' minds. So the reason why I say this is the best discussed decisions in your establishments. Before implementing it, there's still a little bit of discussion. There's a little bit of apprehension that happens, isn't it? That takes place, that prevails. Because somebody else would have said something, the competitor did it this way. It didn't work in 1943, but you are in 2024. Something or other keeps, being told to you. So the thing is that you'll always have a lot of things happening around you, and it's important to ignore that because it's so easy to allow a stray statement to come to the forefront and then create doubts in your minds. Has it happened to you in life? You're about to do something, some stray statement which is not even discussed today, which happened some time ago, has come to the forefront and suddenly made you rethink about what it is that you're going to do. It could be the smallest of acts in life, it could be the biggest decisions, the biggest plans that you're going to implement. It's happened, it's definitely happened. Nobody can say it's not happened. So the best thing is to ignore. And then of course, what is important is you people obviously will collect a lot of information. There's no way any one of you would have gone into doing anything without collecting the required information. But again, the important thing here is that to isolate what is not needed. Sometimes I've found a lot of focus on things that need to be isolated and left alone for the time being. Yes, nothing needs to be totally ignored, but it also has to be cast aside for the time being. But what happens is the order in which the information, the manner in which the information is dissected can sometimes also be very, very detrimental, the manner in which it is done. So it's got to be a case of the most important things and what needs to be cast aside to be brought back later on. It's like an impact player role these days. You don't worry about the impact player now, before the start of the match. Halfway through the match, you decide what is important and then bring the impact player in. So what needs to be cast aside has to be cast aside. And nobody can be a decision maker if you don't give that person enough freedom. And as leaders, most of the times I think we think that we need to be the decision makers. That's right, we need to be the decision makers after taking all the feedback, everything correct, factoring in everything, considering all the things that's told to us. But once a plan needs to be kept going, everybody should have the independence to do their own things so that the plan gets going. It's not stunted, it's not halted. It's very, very critical. And sometimes an action taken by a subordinate or somebody in your team who's not authorized to take decisions might save the day for you. It was interesting to read about an incident in the Virgin Airlines counter, New York. They had introduced the scheme of sending a limousine car to people who book on the business class. You'll be picked up, taken to the airport, and obviously you'll be dropped back when you land back. So one passenger didn't get the limousine, so he is reached the counter in huffing and puffing, and he was fuming. So he just lets loose on the girl at the counter. The girl smoothly says, "Here's your money, sir, the taxi fare that you paid." She found out what the taxi fare was. She says, "Take the $70. We're sorry about that. Next time, even if you're flying on an economy class, we'll send you a limousine just to ensure that we don't lose you." So he obviously pipes down, he's thrilled, he's delighted, he writes to the company. The story gets better. A month later, she goes to her superior. She says, "I want that $70 back, which I paid the customer." He says, "Nothing doing. We don't have provision for that." And eventually, it goes all the way up to Richard Branson, and he says, "No, this is something you need to encourage. You can't stunt. She saved the day for you." And from then on, they started a particular head in accounting calling Goodwill Fund. And this all supposedly went on to the Goodwill Fund. Anyway, checks and balances are good. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely difficult for people to keep sanity going in their businesses. I think enough of leadership. I'll probably go on to coaching and mentoring people to excel. I think that's something that would perhaps be of more interest than me rambling on about leadership. As a coach, you obviously learn as you're coaching. It's not that it's just a one-way street. You just keep learning as you're teaching others as well. And I think successful coaching is all about resorting to educating. It's not instructing. I find a lot of people indulging in instructing more than educating. It's just that each and every individual has to be allowed to try and get better within the framework of their natural style and natural ability. You cannot really clone everybody to be very similar to a Gavaskar or a Tendulkar or a Kohli or a Bumrah or anybody. So the coaches need to educate in as much as leadership is also about coaching, so they need to obviously educate their team members as well. And encouraging is extremely important for people to excel. Encouragement is perhaps the biggest tool that coaches and leaders have to get the best and to ensure that their team members are also upping the ante all the time. Now, by encouragement, I'll tell you, Ashwin, when he started, I was managing, I was with the Tamil Nadu side. So Ashwin is one guy who had this habit of thinking of doing different things on different days. Now, one day, if it occurs to him that if he runs on his head and bowls, he can pick up 10 wickets, he'll do it. He'll try it. That's the kind of person he is. And this is something which is not generally encouraged. So, he came one day, suddenly he said, I want to bowl only leg spin today. So he said, if you want to bowl leg spin, you dedicate a separate session for it. You finish the nets here, bowl your normal, then when we are done with, then go out on your own, do what you want to do. You need to have a secondary skill as well, so do it. And that is something that even today he says, which served him well, because he said, I was not ticked off for saying I want to do something totally contrary to what I was going to do for the team. But the logic is that his secondary skill might somewhere down the line be useful in him getting success, which means when he gets success, the team benefits. And he is not come out there to try a different thing just for the heck of it. He thinks there's something that he can gain out of it. Similarly, there are ways that your team members might suggest that could work better for the execution of some plan in your organization. Who knows? Like Bill Gates says, left to me, I would get hold of the laziest person because he'll try and think of ways of doing things sooner. So, there's no hard and fast rule of, things have to be done in certain way, and rigidity is something which is not really something that is going to help you, given the thing that these days everybody wants a change in everything that they do. Change is happening very quickly in every sphere of life. And of course, the leaders also need to try and empower their team members, failing which they'll always be under a shadow of doubt. One, if they are good enough. Two, if they will ever prosper in life. You got to try and empower them, try and create an atmosphere where they are not left under this particular shadow of doubt. Because self-doubt is the worst enemy any individual can have. And for the self-doubt to rear his head doesn't take much, I assure you. It's just a matter of a couple of seconds, it starts getting into your system and there it goes. And it spreads faster than cancer. So that's the big problem with self-doubt. And that's something that we would not want to have under the same ceiling, would we? If you're looking to achieve something and if you're looking to march on and reach for the stars. And of course, we also need to have empathy for people from different walks of life, different strata of life, because we do not know what it is to go through, what the other person is going through. We may think that we understand. I think understand is a word which is very, very loosely used in our country. I'm sorry to say this. Oh, I understand your grief. Somebody's lost a close relative. Oh, I understand your grief. Do you? Okay. You tell somebody at the ticket counter, you booked a ticket, but you've been offloaded. Oh, I understand, sir. What do you understand? You don't. So, the important thing is to try and have a fair bit of empathy. And that's something we need to really force ourselves to be. We may not be allowed by our superiors to give room for any kind of human equations and emotions playing a part in an organization, but of course, let's not forget it's the people who are working, it's not machines that are working in an organization, in as much as it is in a sport. It's a case of emotions running high in sport because it's the humans who play it, it's not the machines that play sport. And finally, none of these things will matter if we don't master the art of focusing. Focusing is all about narrowing ourselves down. And to give an analogy from the sports field, we've heard of commentators say, or the cricketers say, oh, it was a lapse of concentration, or we didn't concentrate. Now, concentration is something which is again used, lot of people do not perhaps understand to what extent that is important and what exactly it means. Now, just to give you an example of what concentration is on a cricket field is, let's imagine a batsman getting ready to play. Concentration I would divide into 3 parts there. First is the awareness of where the fielders are, and a bit about the bowler when he runs into bowl. So that is general awareness. And then similarly, what happens is that as the bowler starts running in, the focus of the batter starts narrowing down to just watching the bowler. Now, as he gets close to the bowler, that is the fine focus. And as the bowler jumps or gets ready to release the ball, arm is gone up. You will see that 6-inch television screen of the ball and the hand releasing the ball. So that's when the batsman needs to have fierce focus. So similarly, as we are getting into doing something, we need to just narrow down our focus very, very, very finely. It's got to get very, very fierce. And just out of curiosity, I want you to indulge me. Look at any object. If only you need to test your focus levels and your ability to focus at will, look at any object for about 20 seconds. Close your eyes and see how much of that you can see when your eyes closed. Let's start now. 20 seconds. Any one object. Close your eyes. I'll give you 30 seconds to get it in the eye of your mind. What you are focusing 20 seconds with your eyes open. I'll give you another 10. All right. How exactly were you able to get to see in the eye of your mind with your eyes closed? For example, if you were to see this particular part with your eyes open, were you able to see the entire thing with your eyes closed? Yes. Were you? Exactly what I was looking. Now, it's not easy when you first do it. It's definitely not easy. So what I'm trying to get at here is that it's so easy for us to have so many things in our vision when you got to do something. Distractions are very easy. We can easily get distracted. We can see a lot of things which are not really needed. So that's something which is very, very important for all of us. And ironically, this is something we demand of our team members. Focus a lot, but sometimes we lose fact of this. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, in as much as we are all leaders in our own ways, what we also cannot forget is that if you're not a good team player, you can never be a good leader. And with that, I think I'll sign off by thanking the IRIM for this opportunity to talk to an August gathering here, and they've done this very cleverly. They took a risk in getting me to speak, but they ensured that everybody was wide awake first thing in the morning to go through this. Thanks a lot, and I wish all of you the very best, and quite obviously it was a tremendous experience for me to address you people first up in the morning. Thank you.
Before he goes away, I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions, if anybody has that you'd like to address to Mr. Raman. However, before you ask the question, May I request you to keep the question shorter than the answer, if you don't mind.
See, the question is, in sports, when you say captain, he is also playing along with the team. But in business, when, say, a person leading a bigger team of, say, 500 or 1,000 people, he is actually not playing the real game. He is like supporting. So how you correlate these two perspective of leadership?
See, it's like a cricket captain. If he has 10 people, he's got to allocate the roles. So it's up to you to split those 500, 600 into the right functional batches and then communicate accordingly. It's not the numbers, it's about how you manage the numbers or the things that you need to do. What is it that a leader needs to do? He needs to manage, which means he needs to manage the number of people he's handling, he needs to manage his time, he needs to manage his strategy, he needs to manage his thinking. It's up to the leader. 500, 600, 5,000, 6,000, it's up to you. It's up to you to identify how to go about. Like I said, it's got to be thrift. You've got to be capable of planning that and then executing the entire plan through engaging different groups and to collectively achieve the objective.
Anyone else? All right then. I don't think there are any further. Is there? Oh, on second thoughts. Okay.
You talked about encouragement and encouraging people, but it's also about the standard that you set. Just in the name of encouragement, you say you don't encourage people for coming to the office, right? It's also about what they contribute. And if you are seen as encouraging a smaller act or something, the rest of the one feel neglected. Look, I'm doing a far bigger and far more important this one. So how do you choose that, and stuff? How you do, or is it specific to what people need in terms of a pat in the back? Some need more, some more less, or is it about what they do and be seen as equitable across the entire team?
Yeah, every act can be sort of encouraged, which is worthwhile encouraging in different ways, if you know what I mean. For example, I went to a concert of Phil Collins. I'm a great fan of his. And a song is being sung by him, and suddenly you see the guitarist going on with an extended bit. Now suddenly, if you're one who was looking to listen to Phil Collins alone sing, you would think, what's he trying to do? Why is this guitarist hogging the time? But it's the other way around. Phil Collins has obviously given that guitarist time for people to know the grand job that he's doing. Whereas in a recorded song, that guitarist would have just played about 10 seconds. Here he's allowing him to play 90 seconds for the public to know how important he is. There's this overt encouragement, there's this covert encouragement. So it's up to you to choose which act deserves which kind of encouragement. Is it got to be overt or is it going to be covert? But at the end of it all, it's just a question of everybody wanting to be praised. Those days in the Doordarshan setup, they would just be sent to different places to cover the Asian Games abroad, to cover test matches. All they would tell us was, sir, हमको तो थोड़ी सी तारीफ चाहिए और कुछ नहीं चाहिए, मगर वो नहीं मिलता है हमको हमारे bosses से. There it is.
Are we good then? There is one. We'll take that as the last question there. The corner. Wow, us taraf. Oh.
Good morning, sir. Sir, you spoke about challenging and empathy. So leader many times challenge their team beyond what is actually possible. But how do he uses empathy while challenging the team to get the desired outcome?
See, I'll tell you what. I was conducting moonlight trails. Okay? I was conducting moonlight trails for TA cycles, which is basically an event on either side of a full moon, cycles will be provided to couples. They'll ride bicycles for about 25 kilometers. That ride will culminate near a water body. A guitarist will be there, and then they'll be given a midnight snack, and there used to be a lot of rush for that. Now, I was there only for about 15 months, so my boss would say, he would say, WV, I want you to do this. Yes, but I said, do you realize that there's no water body in the place that you want me to start afresh? He would say, yes, I can see that, but the point is that this is the challenge that you got to overcome and do. Find an artificial water body and do it. Now, this is, I think, perhaps something that you need to adapt as well. So then he would say, if you put your mind to W, I know you can find somebody to do this for you, even do this for you for that particular night. I would say, no, that's well and good to try and, sort of boost my ego, but that's not happening. But you would say, but that is a challenge, try and overcome it. And we are looking at expanding our business a lot more in that region. We had to do it. And I think we did that in Pune, where there was no lake at certain point in time. Fortunately, what happened was the timing was such that they had that onset of monsoon very soon. So where there was a huge trough or a valley, water had stagnated. So I said, come on, let's go there. So you got to find ways and means. Sometimes you need that luck, but this is the empathy. You say, yes, I understand it's not the easiest thing, but somehow it's got to be done because we need to be ahead of the competition. Then I'm sure your team members would just do miracles. Thank you.